Welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest, and we're here again today in the doggy bus. It's gotten kind of late. I was going to do this earlier, just put out a few videos or make a few videos, but I had my phone. I always keep my phone in my pocket. If you've seen in recent episodes where my phone just like completely destroyed, it's because I put it right here, but every time I bend over, it falls out. So I was hoping my kids take a bath. I leaned over, and there was enough cracks in the screen to where you could see it glowing underneath. So there was no stopping the water from getting into that. So I had to go get a new phone. All's well. We're going to talk about here, in a previous video, we talked about how you can get ripped off buying a car online. Today I'm going to talk about how you can get ripped off buying a car in person, specifically like at a dealership. And dealerships, if you buy a new car, obviously you're probably not going to get ripped off, but used car dealerships have gotten a reputation throughout the years, mostly because they're the only ones who are an established business who sell used cars, and regardless of how nice used car dealerships in general treat everybody, when your car breaks down eventually or right after you buy it, they're always going to get a little bit of a bad rap because they're not selling a perfect product like you are at a new car dealership. And a lot of times new cars aren't perfect anyways, but they have better warranties because they're straight from the manufacturer. Regardless, we're going to talk about what you need to look out for when you go buy a used car from somebody in person or a used car dealership. Okay, before you go, used car dealerships usually have a Carfax account. So you should ask them for Carfax. Carfax is an online organization that keeps track of vehicle service records. And so, again, most used car dealerships, if not all, have Carfax accounts. And so they can provide you Carfax for free. You can order them yourself, but I think you have to pay for them, especially for the detailed ones. You might be able to get a free one, like a free trial, and it's not going to be as extensive as it would if you had a membership. So ask them for a Carfax because they'll have access to those. If they don't want to give you a Carfax, that should be a red flag. But it's not an end of the deal, especially if you're buying from a private party, which, in my opinion, is the best way to buy a car is from a private party. I think they say about 2 years old is the peak time to buy a new car, 2 to 5 years old. Whenever it's depreciated the most dramatically in its value, and it's from there on going to hold its value the best. I think they say it's 2 years. And so you want to, go private party if you can. You don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay fees for used car dealerships. Are always going to have like sales fees and stuff. They have to pay their employees. So private party is the way to go. You can find better deals. But if you don't want to do that, you just go to a used car dealership or a dealership that has a trade-in. Then you need to ask for the Carfax. Don't just take their word for it. You want to make sure that you know what you're looking for, or you take somebody who does know what they're looking for. So you can hire a mobile mechanic to go with you. Some will do it for free. Some shops you can take your car to and they'll do it for free. I don't recommend, if you're going to invest in a vehicle, to have a free inspection done on it because they're usually not as in-depth as you'd like them to be. Some can be up to $100. Mine started out at $20 just to go and look at it and say yay or nay. Nothing conclusive, but just say it looks like they're telling you the truth, or it looks like they aren't. Up to $100 where it's an in-depth, pulling spark plugs, testing compression, looking at all the facets of the car. But if you know what you're looking for, you can look at suspension, listen to any sort of reports they give you. Ask specifically about vehicle damage in the past, service records in the past, especially if you have that Carfax. Ask why, if they know why some of those things have been done or how they were repaired. And if you don't, again, hire somebody who does know what they're talking about to go with you and ask those questions. Now, it's equally as important to verse yourself on the subject before you go. Even if you're going to take a mechanic with you or somebody who's mechanically inclined, you don't want to be super naive walking into there. You can get taken advantage of. So you want to brush up on lingo that they may be using, different, parts of the car, when they're talking about features of a car and stuff. You want to know what they're talking about. You want to know vocabulary, so when they're talking about repair history or statistics of the car, that you're not just completely, oblivious, and then they'll recognize, hey, this person doesn't know what's going on. They're more likely to be taken advantage of. Then all of a sudden it's, hey, we've got a better deal for you over here. It's only $1,000 more, maybe a piece of junk. So just knowing what you're talking about is much more likely to get you a better deal. In fact, one of our subscribers recently told me a story where he went to a used car dealership, and you could tell sometimes when they're shady, trying to pull a fast one over on you. He said he took it on a test drive and the engine was knocking pretty bad, and when he brought it back, he didn't want to have anything to do with it. Luckily, somebody else was there ready to test drive something. He just handed him the keys back and said, no, thank you. And later they called him, trying to blame him for the engine knocking. And so, know that you're not responsible for anything. They should have insurance on their vehicles to let you take it on a test drive. Insurance is going to cover it since the vehicle is registered under them. But a lot of things, they'll try and force you into a situation where you're not responsible for. So it's good to know what your circumstance is before you go in. Yeah, so there you have it. Just know what you're talking about. Be careful. Don't get forced into a situation. Know when you're going into certain situations what you're responsible for, what you aren't. And that way you have the best chance for success. Again, the best thing to do is just to buy from a private party. A new car, about 2 years old, has the best value for when you're buying a car that new. You're going to pay little to nothing in repairs. It's going to be worth more. It's going to depreciate at a slower rate because it's already depreciated off the big drop for the first 2 years. So it holds a pretty steady value over the next 5 years. And but if you can't do that, if you're like me, going to college, you want to find a cheap car. I find cars on Facebook that are broken and I fix them. But you can find cars on Facebook that are a couple $1,000s. 5 years ago, the number used to be about $2,000, where if you bought a vehicle, expect to pay about $2,000 for it to run well, or buy a $1,000 car and expect to pay about $1,000 in repairs to have it running well. In my experience, that number has kind of bumped up over the last couple of years, and it seems more like, and this is my personal opinion, I haven't spoke to anybody else about this, but about $3,500 is the mark where you're going to get a pretty decent car nowadays. If you pay anything over $4,000, you should be getting a really nice vehicle. And then if you're getting something that's just 2 years old, depending on the vehicle, probably $12,000 for your standard Toyota Camry or lower level car. Something luxurious, obviously you're in a different market. But so that's how you avoid getting ripped off by a used car dealership. If you have any comments, suggestions, leave them down in the comments down below. Something that you would make sure to look out for if you went to a used car dealership to buy a car, or a private party as well. But the biggest thing is just know what you're talking about. And if you don't be naive. Study up on the subject just a little bit, so you can carry on a conversation and know what people are talking about when they're telling you about the vehicle. Don't take their word for it. Don't get pushed into a situation that you're uncomfortable with. Feel confident backing out of a situation where you don't feel comfortable and finding a good deal for yourself. Thanks for watching. I'm Ernest. We'll see you on the next episode of Roadside Rescue.